RAQ has always been the smartest player in raising Kenan. Every time it looks like she's cornered, she finds another way to stay alive. She doesn't panic. She adapts. That's exactly what has kept her on top for so long. But Season 5 might finally be setting up the one mistake she can't outthink. By the end of Episode 4, RAQ is no longer relying on the old drug business alone. With Stefano refusing to fully back her and the streets becoming more dangerous than ever, she's trying to build something bigger. On paper, it looks like the perfect solution. She has new partners, new connections, and a fresh source of income that isn't tied to fighting over corners. The problem is that every single business partner she's chosen comes with problems of their own. And that's why I think this new empire isn't the beginning of RAQ'S comeback. It's the beginning of her downfall. Let's break down why. One thing Raising Kenan has always done well is show that success creates new enemies. When RAQ first built her organization, she controlled almost every part of the operation. The product came through people she trusted. The money stayed inside her circle. Even when there were betrayals, she usually knew exactly where they were coming from. That isn't the case anymore. Her latest expansion depends on people outside the Thomas family. That's a huge difference. The moment your business depends on outsiders, your survival depends on people whose loyalty can change overnight. Episode 4 quietly reminds us of this several times. Look at the meeting RAQ has with Bernardi and Flossie. On the surface, everything goes well. Flossie likes the proposal. Bernardi seems interested. Nobody walks away angry. But if you pay attention to conversation, something feels off. Flossie doesn't agree because she trusts RAQ. She agrees because she expects to make money. Those are two very different motivations. Money creates partnerships. Trust creates loyalty. RAQ has the first. She doesn't necessarily have the second. Flossie is especially interesting. The episode tells us she runs an illegal escort operation and has powerful NYPD connections. That sounds like an incredible ally. But think about it. Someone with police connections probably survives because they know exactly when to change sides. That's how people stay alive in this world. If another organization offers better protection, or Stefano applies pressure, or law enforcement gets too close, what's stopping Flossie from sacrificing RAQ? Nothing, because this partnership was built on business, not friendship. Bernardi creates another possible problem. Unlike many of RAQ's previous partners, he already has his own network. People like that don't enjoy taking orders forever. At some point, they'll want more influence, more money, more control. That's exactly how conflicts begin. One of the smartest things Episode 4 does is contrast RAQ's confidence with what's happening everywhere else. Nothing in New York feels stable. Phil is murdered. Marvin is hunting Unique. Stefano is making moves. Breeze keeps expanding. Kenan is becoming more independent. Every major player is changing position. Yet, RAQ is trying to build a brand new business in the middle of all that chaos. That's incredibly risky. Then there's Stefano. This might be the biggest warning sign in the episode. Notice how distant Stefano has become. Earlier in the series, RAQ benefited from having powerful allies. Now Stefano seems far less interested in helping her. Instead, he's focused on his own priorities. That's dangerous because organized crime works on influence. If the biggest boss stops protecting you, everyone else notices. Suddenly, you're easier to attack. Another reason this business could fail has nothing to do with the business itself. It's timing. RAQ is trying to grow while her family is falling apart. Kenan spends more time with Breeze. Marvin is consumed by revenge. Lou is gone. The Thomas family has always been RAQ's greatest strength. Now it's becoming her biggest distraction. Think about how often RAQ has relied on Marvin. Whenever things became dangerous, Marvin handled problems that couldn't be solved through negotiation. But Marvin isn't thinking strategically anymore. He's thinking emotionally. Episode 4 makes that perfectly clear. His obsession with finding Unique is affecting everything. That's not the Marvin RAQ usually counts on. Then there's Kenan. This may actually be the biggest threat to RAQ's future. He's growing more comfortable making decisions without her. He's spending more time around Breeze. He's learning from different people. Even when Unique warns him about Breeze, Kenan doesn't really listen. That tells us something important. Kenan believes he's smart enough to judge people for himself now. That's exactly the kind of independence RAQ has always feared. What's interesting is that RAQ probably doesn't even realize how much influence she's losing. She still believes she can manage everyone. But every episode shows people drifting further away. Marvin follows revenge. Kenan follows ambition. Jukebox follows her own path. Nobody is fully under RAQ's control anymore. Not Beth, RAQ's biggest strength has always been preparation. She usually thinks 5 moves ahead. But episode 4 hints that she may finally be reacting instead of planning. Her business proposal feels more like survival than strategy. She's looking for stability because the old system isn't working anymore. Sometimes those desperate moves create opportunities. Sometimes they create disasters. There's another small detail worth paying attention to. Flossie immediately asks for a significant percentage. She negotiates aggressively from the very beginning. That tells us she's used to controlling deals. People like that rarely stay satisfied. If the business becomes successful, she'll probably want more. Money changes relationships in this show. We've seen it happen repeatedly. Partners become rivals. Friends become competitors. Family members become enemies. There's no reason this partnership would be any different. Another issue is visibility. The larger RAQ's operation becomes, the harder it becomes to hide. More employees, more transportation, more money moving, more people asking questions. That creates opportunities for rivals and law enforcement. Every expansion creates new weak points. Meanwhile, Breeze continues growing stronger. This might be happening quietly, but it's happening. Every episode gives him a little more influence, a few more connections, a little more confidence. He's becoming someone everyone wants to work with. That's dangerous for RAQ, because influence is limited. If people begin choosing Breeze over RAQ, her organization shrinks without anyone firing a shot. Stefano may even encourage that. He doesn't necessarily need to kill RAQ himself. Sometimes organized crime leaders simply stop protecting someone. Then everybody else finishes the job. We've already seen how ruthless Stefano can be with Phil. That assassination wasn't emotional. It was business. If RAQ ever becomes bad for business, Stefano could treat her exactly the same way. Episode 4 also reminds us that RAQ loves control. But this new business requires compromise. She has to negotiate, share profits, accept outside opinions, trust people she barely knows. That's completely different from how she built her empire. It forces her into unfamiliar territory. The irony is that RAQ's biggest strength may become her weakness. She's incredibly confident. Usually that confidence is earned, but confidence can slowly become overconfidence. If she assumes she can outsmart every new partner the same way she handled old rivals, she could underestimate someone. That's often how powerful characters fall. Not because they're weak, because they stop recognizing new threats. There's also the emotional side. RAQ has lost so much already. Her family relationships are damaged. Her criminal empire isn't what it once was. That creates pressure to prove she still belongs at the top. Sometimes leaders make risky decisions because they need a victory, not because it's the smartest move. One thing I appreciate about episode 4 is that it doesn't scream these warnings at the audience. Instead, it quietly plants them. Every conversation feels normal. Every meeting seems productive. But underneath, almost every alliance has cracks. Those cracks could become massive fractures later this season. If this theory is right, I don't think RAQ's empire collapses because of one betrayal. I think it happens through several smaller failures happening at the same time. One partner gets nervous. Another demands more money. Stefano pulls support. Breeze gains influence. Marvin creates problems. Kenan becomes independent. Individually, none of those destroy RAQ. Together, they absolutely could. That's what makes this storyline so interesting. It's not about one explosive twist. It's about pressure building from every direction until even someone as brilliant as RAQ can't keep everything under control. And that's exactly how Raising Kenan usually tells its best stories. So, is RAQ's new business really her future? Maybe. But based strictly on what we've seen in Season 5 so far, it looks just as likely that it's become the foundation of her biggest mistake. The people she's trusting aren't family. Her strongest allies are distracted. Her enemies are growing stronger. And the criminal world she's trying to navigate is changing faster than ever. RAQ has escaped impossible situations before. But this time the danger isn't coming from one rival. It's coming from every direction at once. And sometimes that's the kind of threat even the smartest player can't survive. If these warning signs continue over the next few episodes, don't be surprised if this ambitious new empire ends up costing RAQ far more than she ever expected. It may not happen overnight, and it may not come from the person she suspects most, but all the pieces are slowly moving into place. Season 5 feels less like the story of RAQ building something bigger, and more like the story of a queen discovering that holding on to power is much harder than winning it in the first place.